This video is slope part 2 because we did part 1 last year, and this is just a little more in depth of slope than we did the year before. Slope is always rise over run. No matter how you find slope, it's just a measure of how steep a line is. We are going to find slope 4 different ways. First is from a graph, then we'll find it from a table, then we'll find it from 2 points, and then we'll find it from an equation. We will also look at the profile of slope. When the line is going uphill, when it's going downhill, when it's horizontal, and when it's vertical. When a line is going uphill, it has a positive slope. And you should always read it from left to right like we read a book. We know that it's rise over run, and in this case, the rise is positive over a run of positive, or you could think of it as a rise of negative over a run of negative. In either case, you get a positive number for an uphill line. When we have a downhill line, we need to think of this as rise over run. Now, in this case, you can either think our slope triangle would have a positive over a negative or a negative over a positive. But in either case, you will notice that you end up with a negative slope. Now, for a horizontal line, since the rise is 0, we get 0 over any number, which is 0. So the slope is 0 for a horizontal line. Again, always 0 for a horizontal line. Now, for a vertical line, we know that since the run is 0, we get any number over 0, which is undefined because we can't divide by 0. So the slope is undefined for a vertical line, always. Now, to find slope from a graph, you need to start by finding 2 intersection points. Now, if you recall, intersection points are where we have integer coordinates. And then you need to make a slope triangle, and then find the lengths of the legs of that triangle, and then write slope as a simplified fraction of rise over run. And don't forget, uphill is for positive slopes, and downhill is for negative slopes. So in this example, we have a line, and I'm going to label 2 intersection points. So here's one intersection point, and then I'm going to go down to another intersection point that's right here and draw my slope triangle. Now, my slope triangle has a rise of -4 because it goes down 4, and a run of 6, which is simplified to -2/3. So the slope of this line is -2/3. So let's look at slope from a table. So let's make a table here, and I'll fill in the values here. Now, the first difference is +9 because we're looking at the difference in x going from -3 to 6. We have to add 9. Now let's look at the difference in y. That's 6 because to go from -1 to 5, we have to add 6. Now let's look at the difference in x again, and that's from 6 to 12, we have to add 6. And then the difference in y, from 5 to 9, we have to add 4. And then the difference from 12 to 9, we have to subtract 3. And similarly, to go from 9 to 7 in the y values, we have to subtract 2. And since slope is change in y over change in x, let's look at that ratio of change in y over change in x. So the first change in y is 6, and we're going to write that down as our numerator. So we're going to take 6 over the change in x, and the change in x is 9, and so that goes in the denominator, and then that simplifies to 2/3. So for the next difference, we have a change in y of 4 over a change in x of 6. And that simplifies to 2/3. And finally, we have a change in y of -2 over a change in x of -3, which gives us -2 over -3, which is 2/3. And since all the ratios of the rise over the run for each difference are the same, we know the points are collinear, and thus for a line with slope of 2/3. To find slope from 2 points, please recall that slope is rise over run, or change in y over change in x. So we just need to find the change in y and divide it by the change in x. So let's start with 2 points, 5, 7, and 2, 11. Let's take the change in y, so that's 7 minus 11, over the change in x, and that's 5 minus 2. Well, 7 minus 11 is -4, and 5 minus 2 is 3. So the slope is -4/3. It doesn't matter which ordered pair you start with, as long as you keep using that pair as your first number. So to find slope from an equation, you just solve the equation so you have just y on one side, and on the other side you have x with a coefficient and a constant. So if I have 2y plus 4x equals 8, then I can subtract 4x from both sides and get 2y equals -4x plus 8, and then divide both sides by 2 and get y equals -2x plus 4. Once it's in this form, called the slope-intercept form, it should look like y equals mx plus b, and the slope is the coefficient of x, or -2 in this case, and we use the variable m for slope.